Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our third session of our summer program. We have a really awesome guest speaker with us today, Dr. Fatima Talavera, and we're going to let her go ahead and get started. She has a presentation, and then she'll have some time for questions at the end. So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our third session of our summer program.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I didn't realize there was going to be so many people, but I'm so excited that everyone was able to come. And thank you for taking the time to come. And hopefully you guys get something out of my presentation today. Was everybody able to see my screen okay? Yeah, awesome. So hi, everyone. Like she said, my name is Dr. Fatima Talavera. I'm currently a PGY1 emergency medicine resident physician. So my introduction, what I like to call this PowerPoint is M.D.s to M.D. And once we kind of go through the presentation, you'll kind of understand why I decided to pick this name for this presentation. Also, additionally, I do have a social media account, and that's actually my social media name is M.D.s. So we'll get started. So this is a little bit about myself. So I wanted to do a throwback to my younger self. I was actually born in Mexico, and I grew up there for 5 years. My family decided to immigrate to the US when I was 5. And then I actually came to the US undocumented. I grew up undocumented until I was 17 years old. And I grew up in a small town in Georgia. So I also wanted to tell you a little bit about my family, kind of my background, so you guys can kind of understand some of the obstacles that people face who are immigrants to the US. So my mom and dad were also born in Mexico. My dad, his highest level of education is high school. And then my mom, she is the oldest sibling of 10 brothers and sisters. So she actually had to drop out of elementary school to help take care of her brothers and sisters. So I come from a family where dad kind of went to high school and graduated, and then mom has like minimal education. So a little bit about kind of like, we're gonna go through my like educational career and kind of what led me to going into medical school and becoming a physician. So in high school, my love for science actually started in high school. I took an AP biology class and I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. I fell in love with genetics, actually. I was like, oh my God, how cool is it? You know, how DNA works. It's like these little instructions that basically tell how to build a human. And I was just so fascinated by that. But obviously there was lots of challenges being undocumented. I wasn't able to get my legal residency status until I turned 17, which I was a senior in high school then. So if you can kind of think about it, like junior year, you're already kind of thinking about what you want to do, what schools you're applying to, studying or taking the SATs. So for me, my future was kind of up in the air. And it wasn't until almost like my senior year of high school that I actually got to pursue or even thinking about going to college. Additionally, kind of another challenge for being in high school and trying to pick a career is that I had no idea what I wanted to do. Obviously, my family didn't have a lot of networking, people that they knew in higher education that knew what to do. So I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea what it took to go to college. I had no idea the steps that you had to take the SAT. I had a lot of help from my counselors in high school, which kind of facilitated that for me to know. But there were still a lot of things that I had no idea, like applying to FAFSA, like every little step, I had no idea what to do. I kind of had to figure it out on my own. Also, I kind of wasn't sure like how to go about going to college, you know? So it was a lot of things to kind of tackle on my own. And obviously I couldn't ask anybody. So I'm the first in my family. I have 2 brothers. One's an older brother and one's a younger one. My older brother did not pursue a higher education. So I'm the first in my family to go to college, graduate with my MD. So kind of throughout my entire educational career, I've kind of had to tackle everything myself. So once I got to college, I had a lot of challenges starting college, right? Like, obviously like in high school, I didn't really have to study as much. as I did when I got to college. And that was definitely like a culture shock for me, because I feel like in high school, I didn't really have to try as hard versus in college, it was like figuring out how to study, figuring out how to be a responsible adult now that like I'm responsible for myself, and figuring out how to put your schedule. And also during that time in college, there was a point where I had 3 jobs in order to help pay for my education. So I worked at Dunkin' Donuts, and then I also worked as a chemistry lab assistant during undergrad, and then also like a part-time job that the school gives you. So I was pretty busy. And then I also, my first 2 years of undergrad, I ran cross country. So also busy with that, was like a full-time student, was involved in different organizations. So it was a lot of things that I kind of had to deal with navigating college. And when I started college, I actually had no idea, like from going to high school to college, I had no idea like what I wanted to do. And I remember one of my classmates was thinking about going to nursing school. So I was like, oh, that sounds kind of like cool, like going to be a nurse. So when I was a freshman, I actually started as a nursing major. And that's kind of what I was doing for the first year, because I really didn't have any idea what I wanted to do, since I had like no experience to basically any kind of healthcare related career or any other like career. And then I got to my sophomore year, and I met some of my college friends, and I told them, I was like, I think it would be kind of cool to like go to medical school. And I didn't feel like I was smart enough to go to medical school. And then she kind of encouraged me, and she was like, I think you should do it. I feel like you're doing really well right now, so you should do it. So sophomore year came around, and then I switched my major to being pre-med. Obviously a lot more stressful. I had to catch up a little bit on certain classes since I started freshman year as a nursing major. And then senior year, I was kind of debating between going to like PA school, because during this time, PA school was kind of starting to be a big thing. So I was like, okay, so now there's like PA school and medical school. So which one do I want to go to? And obviously, I feel like you don't ever have a good idea of what a career is unless you have exposure to it. So I had no exposure. And during my senior year, I took a pre-PA class with a PA who worked at a hospital that was close by. And I was like, okay, I think it would be kind of cool to do this. And when I graduated, I kind of bounced back and forth as far as like what I kind of wanted to do. So I actually decided to do like PA. And I took the GRE and I went through all of that, and I got my GRE scores back, and I went to go talk to this professor because he was really the only one there. And he kind of gave me some advice, and he was like, I feel like you should probably go to nursing school because your scores are not high enough and you're probably not going to get into PA school. So that was pretty devastating, having somebody, who is already in this career kind of telling you like, you're not good enough, your scores are not good enough to go into this career field. So that was pretty demotivating for me. And I just kind of was like, okay, well, maybe I should try taking it again. Maybe I should do something different. I feel like med school was always kind of there. And then I was like, well, since I don't really have a lot of experience, I kind of want to get a job in this field to kind of see, if this is what I really want to pursue or not. So I actually ended up getting a job at a hospital. And then just to kind of talk about some differences as far as like going to PA school or going to medical school. So medical school, some of the requirements is obviously some of the requirements for medical school and PA school are very similar. It just, the different exams that you have to take to enter are a little bit different. So for medical school, obviously having a GPA is always like a really valuable thing. And then for med school, you have to take the MCAT, which is a super long exam that you kind of have to study for. And then also the Casper exam. So this is basically like a judgment type of test. It's not like a regular test, more based on like personality, which came around not too long, like when I started applying. And then obviously you have to have healthcare experience, meaning like hands-on working on with patients, and then also extracurricular activities, which can be both like medical related and not medical related. And then letters of recommendation as well. So with PA school, obviously it's the same. The only difference is the GRE exam. And there may be like a similar Casper exam as well, but I'm not sure what like the most up-to-date things are for PA school. So I just kind of want to take the time to talk about like how long does it really take to be a physician. So obviously you have to complete 12 years of like elementary school, high school, and graduate. I have to go do 4 years of undergrad. It doesn't necessarily have to be in like biology pre-med. People have a lot of different degrees as long as it hits the major requirements for you to have what they require. So like chemistry, biology. I know people that went and they got like a neuroscience degree, but those certain requirements that you need for med school are still met. And then you also, med school is 4 years and then training. So the minimal level years of training is 3 years, but it can be up to like 7, depending on whatever it is that your specialty is. So this is basically a 23-year plus investment that you have to take. And this doesn't count any kind of gap years if you decide to go get a master's or any other kind of degree to kind of boost up your resume. So if you kind of compare that to become a PA, it's a little bit less time. So obviously complete like the high school, elementary, and then go to undergrad. And then usually it's roughly about 2 years and a half. It just depends on what program we go to for PA school. Again, obviously you need, some people take gap years, some people take extra classes to boost up their GPA. So everybody's case is a little bit different. But in terms of like the schooling, this is kind of how long it takes. So obviously you can see the big difference between going to medical school and going to PA school. So for me, after I graduated, I knew that I wanted to work in healthcare, but I just wasn't sure what role I wanted to do it in. So I decided to take 1 gap year to kind of basically boost my resume in order to apply to medical school. So that 1 gap year actually turned into 6 gap years for me. And I'll kind of go through my story about what I did throughout these 6 gap years. So I actually started working in the emergency room, and I worked as a scribe. So a scribe is basically someone who does the medical documentation for physicians. So I actually got to work alongside with them, and that was a pretty cool experience. And then I also worked as in a primary care clinic as a medical assistant. Because I knew that regardless of whether I wanted to go to medical school or PA school, I knew that I needed to have some kind of skill set in order to boost my resume to be able to get into either one. So I decided to do that. And at one point, so I initially started working in the ER for a couple of years. And then I was like, okay, like I kind of want to see what like primary care is like. And so I worked at a primary care clinic like Monday through Friday, and then I worked in the emergency room on the weekends. So at that point, I had 2 jobs at one time. And then also I did a lot of volunteering. And after I graduated, I also joined a sorority and was the chapter president after I became a member. So was responsible for those activities. And I got to volunteer. So I'm from Georgia. There's this clinic where I live called the Goodness Clinic. So basically this clinic provides free healthcare for the residents in the county, free of cost. This includes like medication. So I got to work as like a medical assistant and also as a scribe since I had experience working in the ED. So I was able to put my skills to use there. And I volunteered there for a few years. So I had a pretty good amount of hours for volunteering. And then the leftmost picture is right around when COVID started. That same clinic actually put on like a drive-through like COVID testing center. And so I got to volunteer there. My first language is Spanish, so I was being a Spanish interpreter for the patients getting tested, just kind of explaining to them what the test was, and then how they would get their results. So obviously I was doing a lot of things to kind of try and basically boost up my resume to be like the best applicant I could. So I applied to medical school. I took the MCAT a few times, didn't do as well as I wanted to. And then I applied to multiple cycles without success. So this pretty much led me to kind of have a period of depression because I feel like I placed a lot of pressure on myself, and also feeling the societal pressure of you have to have your life figured out by a certain time in order for you to be considered successful. So coming from a person who always had a plan of what I was going to kind of do in terms of like education, like I knew I was going to go to college after I went to high school, but then I got to this point here after graduating college where it was like, well, here I am and I don't know what it is that I want to do. And also like working in a healthcare setting where there's also other people who want to go and do what you want to do, and they're getting in and you're doing everything you can in order to get where you want to be and you're not getting there. It hurts your feelings. Like you're like, well, why are these people getting in, but I'm not getting in despite you putting in all this work? And so I felt like a big failure, not being able to reach this goal that I had set for myself. And this was pretty significant on my mental health. It got to the point where I was like, I can't do this anymore. And during that time as well, I was dating someone and we ended up kind of going our separate ways. So that kind of added on more stress to kind of my situation that was going on, which was pretty bad. So I kind of had to take a break. I took a 2-year break from kind of chasing this dream that I felt like I had always wanted. And the picture on the left, that's actually me leaving Georgia to go stay with my brother for like a month because like I like mentally like there was no energy for me to stay in Georgia. Like I just couldn't. It was so many emotions of just feeling like a failure, feeling like I wasn't meeting these expectations that I had for myself, and it was very difficult. And then add on to that, you know, coming from an immigrant family where, you know, like your parents don't really have the skill sets to teach you how to kind of process these emotions when you're in a place where maybe your family has never been and doesn't really understand, you know, like how much this can impact you. So I went to go stay with my brother to just kind of like be in my feelings and to kind of be honest with myself, which was something that was pretty difficult. Kind of facing everything that all these emotions that I was suppressing of, you know, feeling like I was a failure when in reality I wasn't. It was just life was difficult. I didn't have a lot of mentors to kind of show me the way. And so during this time, I was like, you know what, I'm going to put, you know, this dream of wanting to further my education on hold. And I'm just going to get back to taking care of myself. Because as I told you guys before, I had 2 jobs at one time. Like I wasn't spending a lot of time with like my friends, family, all because I wanted to go to med school or go to PA school. So during like my 2-year break, I actually got to travel a lot. Which I was like fortunate enough because I had like job that I could do that. So I actually went to Oregon. I went to Canada. The middle picture is actually from Oregon, and the other one is from Canada. Also got to go to San Francisco. So lots of things that I felt like getting back to knowing who I was, all the things that I enjoyed outside of like medicine, because career, like at this point, career was not defining who I am. Like there's more to life than having a career, than reaching this goal. So kind of during this time period was a big evolving phase for me, knowing myself a lot better, knowing my boundaries for kind of breaking between like knowing that you have to have a career, but it's only one part of you and it doesn't define everything and every aspect of your life. And then also having other things that make you happy that have nothing to do with your job. So those were like some pretty big significant like life lessons learned during this time. So then I got back to kind of a better mental health place. So at this point, I was still working in the emergency department. I had met, there was a new doctor that had started. So I was able to relate to him. He was also a minority. So I feel like he was able to relate to me in terms of like the challenges of what it takes to, you know, going to med school. And so him and then another doctor as well. The other doctor, so one of them, he was African American and the other one was Indian. So they were really great. They kind of pushed me whenever I was trying to go through like applying to med school or PA school. One of them just told me like, you just have the personality where you just belong in the medical field as a doctor and not as a PA. And so I kind of took that to heart, which kind of motivated me to kind of go back. And then the other doctor, he was just asking me one day, like, hey, like, what's going on? Like, like, what are you gonna be doing from here? Like, after I had taken the MCAT and wasn't so successful at it. So he told me, obviously this is not working for you. So what are you gonna do differently? So this kind of took me to applying to a Caribbean medical school. So I don't know if you guys are kind of in the process of like applying to medical school or know anything about applying to medical school. But sometimes people have a stigma about people who go to a Caribbean medical school, that they're not as smart, that they have lower grades, or just, these stigmas, which I myself had also had, because obviously this is what you hear from other people who are in this field. But never personally I never had any experience with people who went to Caribbean medical schools. So somehow I went on Google and I was like, let me figure out, like what my options are. And so I kind of started Googling and found that there was a Caribbean medical school called St. George's University, among some of the other ones that were also there. And so I saw they were having an in-person event. So I decided to go just to kind of see what it was about. So I went, and then it was a pretty positive experience. They actually had alumni come and speak just about their experience and where they were. And so I kind of decided to apply. This was actually my last kind of effort at going into medical school. I was like, okay, if I don't get into medical school now, like I'm doing something completely different. I was like, I'm tired of investing my time, my money into applying to medical school. Because some of the things that they don't tell you, like if you don't have any experience with applying to medical school or PA school, is like the financial like cost of it. You have to like pay for the MCAT. The MCAT, I believe, when I had to take it, it was between like $300 to $400. Also, this additional test that they added on costs money, and then also applying each application that you apply to each school costs money. I know it ranges from different prices. I think when I was applying, it ranged from like $80 to $110, but it could be something way higher now. And then there's like secondary applications that you also have to fill out, which also costs money. So whenever I was applying to med school, I think I spent somewhere around like $3,000 or $4,000. And I was like one time applying, and I applied, I believe it was 2 or 3 times. I can't remember anymore, but you can kind of see like I spent a lot of money trying to apply to go to medical school. So that's something that I wish that I had known, was like the amount of money and time that it was going to take to be able to apply for this career. So once I kind of had decided that I was going to apply to a Caribbean medical school, I went on their websites and I searched for them. There's some of the other known ones are also like Ross. And so those were kind of the 2 that I was familiar with. So those were the 2 that I was looking at. And I actually went to an in-person event also for Ross, just to kind of, get my options and see what was available. So kind of what ultimately led me to applying to St. George's and going was basically the passing rate for their step scores, and also that they had you do your first 2 years in on the island, but it was a little bit different for me because I started in 2020 when the pandemic hit. So for me, I actually experienced med school like online, basically because the whole world shut down. So what kind of led me there was like the board scores were really good for passing for first time. And then also they had different hospitals, clinic sites for the next 2 years after you're done with the first 2 years, all across the US. So those were kind of the things that made me want to apply there. So I started in August of 2020 at St. George's during the pandemic. And it was definitely one of the most challenging times of my life. I feel like people can definitely tell you that med school is hard. You can hear it from other people on social media, like the med influencers. But I think it's not until you kind of go through the process do you truly understand just how much work and effort going into medical school is. You're going to be challenged in every way possible that you can think of, that you've never been challenged, like mentally, physically, emotionally, academically. Med school humbles you in no way that anything else in your life will ever. But definitely it's a big learning experience. You get to learn about yourself, other people, which is pretty cool. And so I just kind of want to talk about like what med school involves. So once you get into med school, it's basically 4 years. So the first 2 years are didactics. So that is when you go and it's classroom learning and just kind of taking tests. For myself, I think I had an exam every like 3 weeks. So if you kind of compare med school to undergrad, so my first 3 weeks of med school, it was literally equivalent to 1 semester of undergrad. Like I actually went back and I counted the lectures that I had exams on, and I had like 50 lectures that I had to like learn and basically 3 weeks to take an exam. So that's what kind of didactic year is like. And that's kind of like, it's not necessarily that the content is difficult. It's just the amount that's given to you at a time is what makes it a lot. But you become pretty efficient. You kind of, it takes a little bit of growing pains to figure out how you study and how you effectively study, because like what I did in undergrad and what I did in med school are 2 completely different ways of studying, just because you have to be able to retain that information in order to take these exams. So after the first 2 years, then you have to take step 1. So step 1 is one of the medical licensing exams that you take in order to be able to move on to the next 2 years. So the next 2 years is all like clinical hospital rotations. So basically you can kind of think of it as like shadowing, but they sometimes let you do certain things with a patient. And they let you like interview the patients, but it's basically you rotate through different specialties. So 3rd year, they call it your core years. So you do the core rotations, which is like primary care, pediatrics, OBGYN, surgery. So I got to rotate through those. And then 4th year is basically you get to pick your schedule, you get to do whatever it is that you want, different specialties, and you can go to different hospitals anywhere in the US. So after 3rd year, you have to take another licensing exam. It's called step 2. So after you take that one and you pass successfully, then you apply to residency. And once you apply to residency, basically you basically have to pay to have a job. Like it's crazy. Sometimes I feel like it's a scam, and I scammed myself because I have to pay money in order for people to like look at my application so that they can give me an interview. So obviously it's a lot of money involved even when you're in medical school as well. So once you get interviews, for example, you can apply to like however many specialties there are, and you kind of pick based off like what state you want to land in. If there's anything specific you want to do, you kind of tailor your applications and where you apply to those places. So I actually applied to 86 programs in the US for emergency medicine. And then I got 14 interviews out of those invitations. So basically I had 14 interviews, and once I interviewed, I made a rank list. So I make a rank list, and then the program I interviewed at also made a list. And this is all like computer algorithm. So I had to like submit my rank list, and so did the programs, and a computer basically matches the programs. So you rank your programs from 1 to however many you want to rank to that you had interviews at, and they also rank basically the applicants that they want the most at their program. And then it goes into a computer. The computer sees if the program and the applicant match. And if you pick if your number 1 picked you as well, then you get placed at your number 1. And that's kind of how it works to match for a residency. And then I just kind of want to go through like my clinical years of med school. So I did the first 2 years of med school, obviously online, and it was at home in Georgia. And then for the next 2 years, I actually moved to New Jersey to do my clinicals for 3rd and 4th year. This was definitely a struggle As someone who actually went to undergrad in Georgia, this was the first time that I was like moving away from like my family. I had no family in Jersey. I didn't know anybody. Obviously, because I didn't get to interact as much with my classmates, I really didn't know any of my classmates who were in Jersey. But it was a really great experience getting to know my classmates now that like we were actually able to go back to the hospitals since COVID had kind of gotten a little bit better and there wasn't as many restrictions. So kind of going from the left picture to the right, on the left, that was me on my pediatric rotation. We got to go into the nursery. So basically when they do the newborn exams, they take the babies up to like put them in these little boxes where they keep them warm. And we got to do like newborn exams, which was like the coolest thing because they're so tiny. And then the middle picture, I got to do geriatric care, which I had no idea existed. So basically it's doctors who focus on patient care in like the elderly, which is also part of like, it falls under the primary care umbrella. But that definitely learned a lot from that experience. And then the picture on the right, that was actually my OBGYN rotation. So got to witness like multiple births. I cried on my very first birth with like the dad because you don't ever realize like how cool it is that like women can have babies. So me and the dad were like shedding tears together because they had a baby. So that was pretty cool. And then for another part of like my experience as well, this was kind of during fourth year. I got to do an EMS rotation. So basically I got to go on like the ambulance and they let me ride the ambulance with like the paramedics in Jersey. So that was really cool. And then in the middle picture, that's me and my best friend from med school. We got to do one of our rotations together. It was family medicine with this doctor, and he was like the coolest doctor ever. He was like, oh, make sure you guys keep in touch. So he was really cool. Always like teaching us stuff. So that was really awesome. And then the last picture, obviously I had to get a picture of my white coat. I love Christmas time. So they set up like a Christmas tree during Christmas at the hospital I was rotating at. So I had to get a picture. So obviously like med school is a lot of studying, but you also get to travel a lot. For me, since I lived in Jersey, I got to actually pick what state. I ranked states as far as like where I wanted to be at the highest, and my level of priority was, I knew that I was interested in emergency medicine because I had worked in the ER. So going into med school, I knew I was interested, but I also wanted to keep my mind open to maybe I liked other things. And I honestly thought that OBGYN was going to steal my heart, and I thought that that's what I was going to end up picking. But then I actually did my rotation and felt like I just didn't fit there. And then that's kind of when I knew that emergency medicine was for me. So since I lived in Jersey, my apartment was actually 10 miles from New York City. So I got to live in Jersey, but then also got to experience like the New York City life as well. And then the middle picture is me and my best friend actually did our last rotation of med school together. We got to do it in Miami. So that was pretty fun. And then the left picture is a picture in Boston. I had like a 1 week break during my fourth year because you get to schedule your rotations however you want. So this is actually at Harvard. I went to go do like a tour. So that was pretty cool. And then the right picture is just me on the subway. I had to get my New York City subway picture in at least once. So obviously lots of fun. You get to do lots of fun stuff as well, despite having to like study. And then once third year finished and I passed my board exams, I got to apply to residency. So this is actually my glamour shot for what I used to apply to residency. And then I actually, when I matched into residency, remember I told you guys that basically you have to put in a ranked list, and the program puts a ranked list, and it's all computer algorithm. So I actually matched at Duke in North Carolina in emergency medicine. So this is like my picture. You always have to get a mandatory matched picture whenever your match day is. And match day is always the same day in March for the fourth year med students. And I had to get a mandatory last day of med school picture, because this is a pretty big accomplishment. I think especially for myself, having gone through so much, so many obstacles, to kind of get to this point. So this was like a pretty exciting day for me. And then this is me officially at graduation, officially Dr. Talavera. So I had my graduation in New York, and my friends and family came for my graduation. So on the left is my parents, so super excited. And then on the right, it's my best friend that I've had since like undergrad. So that was pretty awesome to have everyone there and celebrating this. And so just to kind of recap, obviously the traditional path of going into medical school is like you finish undergrad and then you take maybe 1 or 2 gap years to kind of boost up your resume. But for me, it was 6 gap years before I started medical school. So I'm currently in my first year of training as an emergency medicine doctor at Duke. And I have 2 more years of training to go, because for emergency medicine, it's only 3 years. So if you kind of add all those years up, it's basically 29 years of investment into this career field. And this is me. This is actually my glamour shot from my white coat. This is officially actually going to go on the website for Duke. And we took it last week. So I was like, it's perfect timing. I have to put it on my presentation. So pretty excited about this, because it took a lot to get here. Also, like being a woman of color as well. There's not a lot of us here. So I'm really happy to represent and be able to show other women as well, and other minorities, that it can be done. So just kind of some big takeaways for you guys. Kind of have gone through this process myself and going through different obstacles. I would say one of the biggest things is prioritize self-care, right? Like nobody ever tells you this. Like if your parents, are immigrants, they don't really have this concept of self-care, because it's almost like hard work is ingrained in us, which is really great. But also like they forget the aspect of, okay, like it's okay to rest too. And it's okay to do things that are not necessarily involved with, work related activities. So that's definitely one of the things that I would say is prioritize your self-care. Don't ever let your career be the first thing on your list. It should always be you, and you should always prioritize being your healthiest self. When I actually went to med school, because I had this experience of like not being my best self, I knew that I wanted to take care of myself during med school, and I invested in a gym. I went to go work out and eating healthy. And I made a goal for myself that I didn't want to drink any type of caffeine going into med school. And I'm happy to say that I graduated med school without drinking any kind of caffeine. I never pulled any all-nighters. And even now in residency, I actually don't drink caffeine. So we'll see how long that goal stays, but I'm actually pretty proud of myself for setting those goals and being able to meet them, because I wanted to prioritize my self-care. Also, another takeaway is find mentors that you can relate to. Obviously, you're going to have people that you guys have exposure to who may not look like you, who may not have similar background as you, who will not understand the different obstacles that you have to face in order to get where you are. So obviously, if you have a mentor who is maybe not from the same background as you, and they can provide information that helps you, definitely take it. But also, if they have any kind of negative thing to say, take it with a grain of salt, because I think if you're not able to understand someone's background and the things and the obstacles that they have to get through in order to get where they need to be, I just feel like you shouldn't really take their opinion as highly, because I think it'll hurt you if you take their opinion in a way. How I was telling you guys about how that PA kind of told me that I should go and do something else because my scores, were not the best. When he could have just asked oh, what are you doing to study? Or how are you tackling this? Oh, or, do you have a job that basically takes away from having you spend more hours doing this, or financial responsibilities or family responsibilities? So definitely try to find mentors that you can relate to. And this is on different levels. So you can kind of think of finding a mentor as someone who is above you. For example, like let's say you're in high school right now. Find either like a college student who is already there, and use social media to your advantage. Like obviously not all of us will have people that we know, but social media, and I think especially for the younger generation, this is something that you can use in order to kind of help you like network. So social media, people make accounts because they want to share the experiences that they went through, in order to help other people so that you guys don't have to go through what we went through. So that was one of the reasons I decided to start my account on social media, was because of that. So kind of back to the mentors, find one who's like a person who's in college right now, who may be wanting to go to med school or PA school or whatever other career field that you may be interested in. Send them a message. I feel like people are pretty open to answering questions. And then if you're able to find a mentor above that level, which would be someone already in the career field that you want to be in, definitely do that as well. It definitely takes a lot of effort. Nothing is going to be handed to you unless you have someone in your family that can like make that transition of availability there. Otherwise, you're going to have to, call offices, email offices, basically put a significant amount of effort for you to find these mentors, in order for you to get this information. And then I think another big thing that helps whenever you're trying to go into this field is to network. Something that I had no idea like existed, was like networking when I was younger. It wasn't until like later on in life that I was like, okay, I was like, people get jobs because they know people, or people get into school because they know people. So definitely make sure that you network, because I think that's something that definitely helped me when I was applying to residency. I made sure to do my homework. I was like following residency programs like online on social media, seeing whenever they had events, going to their events, showing up, asking questions. And then also reaching out to people. Like one of the residents that's actually with me now, I reached out to her because she had a social media page, just to get information about like what she did to get into the residency that I'm at now. And she actually set up a phone call with me, which was really awesome because it's like the person who's already there and she knew what to do. So that's one example. And then once I got an interview here, she actually, after my interview, I sent her a message and I was like, I just want to thank you so much for all your help. And she actually told me, she like sent me a little screenshot and she was like, this is the email that I'm going to be sending to our program directors, to let them know like that I feel like you would be such a great addition to the residency. So obviously, like, like I never asked her to send that for me. Like she just did it on her own, after she saw how much effort I made into asking questions. She also saw my CV, and so she made an effort to do that for me as well. And then one of the doctors, if you guys remember me telling you about one of the doctors who was my mentor. So how I found out about the like Duke emergency medicine residency was actually because of him, because this is where he went to this is where he went to residency. So I actually reached out to him when I was applying and I was like, hey, like I'm going to be applying here. So he actually made a phone call to the program director, to let him know about me, because me and him had worked together for a few years. So he knew my work ethic. And it's something that my program director actually brought up not too long ago, was that doctor actually called him, to basically refer me to this program. So there's definitely big things in networking, that you can do in order to increase your chances to get into schools, to get a job. Every aspect of your life, networking is something that you can do. And as someone who is like an introvert with extrovert tendencies, like I would never have imagined that I would be like doing this presentation for you guys. Like when I was younger, I was like super shy. I hated public speaking, but somewhere along the lines, things changed. And if you're a super introvert and don't like talking to people, definitely this is something that you have to like step outside of yourself and put yourself out there in order for you to be successful. And you can kind of just think of it as you're investing in yourself, and these are the steps that you need to do in order to get where you want to be. And obviously, if you want the best for yourself or to be in a certain position, obviously you want to do the best and put your best efforts in it. So lastly, so this is my social media. My account name is Mesta MD. So to kind of wrap up the name, so when I was kind of going through my struggle, I saw this quote on Pinterest, and it was talking about how sometimes, like one day you're a mess, and then you turn that mess into a message. And I think I just resonated with me, just given the fact that I went through so much to get where I am now. And I was like, man, this is so perfect to be like a name, because I felt like I was such a mess trying to get my life together, had no idea what I was doing, just trying to figure things out for myself. And somehow through all of that, I made it. And so I was like, this just is so perfect. This is what I had to call it. So basically that's all I have for you guys. Definitely happy to answer any questions now. You definitely can unmute yourselves or put it in the chat if you have any questions about anything.
Awesome. Okay, so to thank Dr. Talavera for coming to speak to us today and sharing all about her journey, we usually give our guest speakers a little virtual round of applause. So if people wouldn't mind putting the little clap reaction on Zoom right now, just to say thank you for your time. And also, Dr. Talavera, if you ever have a second, there are lots of positive messages for you in the chat if you want to scroll through them. And lots of students saying they're really proud of you for sharing your journey and that it was really inspiring. So if you want to check those out, you can.
Yeah,
So if people have questions, I think some people already have their hands up. Are their hands up, Dr. Talavera? So if you see them and you want me
gosh,
calling them,
I do actually.
yeah.
Um, okay, hold on. Is it Mason?
Me?
Yes.
I, okay. I want to ask some questions. It's only few. Okay. To the first question, how can we get ready for a university scholarship like Harvard University or etc.?
The question was how do I get like scholarships to a university?
Yes.
So when it comes to applying for scholarships, usually you can so Google can be your best friend. So there's going to be Google where you can find just random ones that people offer or different organizations, or also like schools. When you apply to schools, they will have ones that you can also apply to. For example, like when I went to med school, there was like a humanitarian scholarship that you could apply for if you had like hours volunteering, which is something that I really love to do, and I had a lot of hours. So I actually got a scholarship just because from volunteering before I went to med school. So those are like, I feel like those are two ways that you can find scholarships.
Oh, okay. Thank you. So the second question is, how can I be a successful doctor? What important things I should do, and how can I manage my time?
So what are some important things that you can do to get to medical school? Is that the question, right?
Yes, or become a successful doctor.
So I would definitely say get clinical experience. I think number one, like if you want to go to med school and that's kind of what you're thinking about, is definitely get experience working somewhere. So it's either going to be like a hospital setting, whatever. Let's say you're interested in something like a certain specialty. See if you can find some kind of job that doesn't require a like certificate, because there's certain jobs like if you want to do EMT, which is like the paramedics who ride on the ambulance, usually they require you to have a course that you have to pay for in order to do it. But that is really great clinical experience for any setting. So you can either do it that way, or you can do it where you can try and find a job like at a hospital or at like a clinic, and different specialties that you'll have like experience in to see that, you know, this is a specialty that I want to do. In order for you to kind of figure out if that's what you want to do, number one. And then number two, you get to meet people within that healthcare field who are potentially could be some people that could help you and be your mentors as well. And in order to find like jobs somewhere, either like know people like in the field, or like, I don't know if you have friends that potentially can work in the field, or also like Google can be your best friend. Because how I found out about my job working in the hospital was actually from one of my classmates. She told me about this job position at the hospital. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna apply. And I think the first time I applied, I didn't get it because there was no positions open. But then I think a few months went by, and I think I reapplied again, and then I ended up getting the job. So definitely use Google. Also, like volunteering is really good in healthcare settings. Obviously, that you're not going to get paid doing volunteering, but sometimes like free health clinics or like fairs, like healthcare fairs, they need volunteers, which can also like kind of help you get experience from that as well.
Perfect. Thank you. I
Okay,
think
thank you.
Paul has his hand up next.
Yes, hello. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Got it. Thank you. So I want to kind of backtrack to your original medical school experience at St. George's.
Yes.
One of the impressions I got as I was listening, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, it kind of was the way you described St. George's was kind of as a lesser version of maybe medical schools in the US. Would you say that now, as you're back in the US and you're talking to other medical school residents and people, is there a negative stigma attached to Caribbean medical schools? And I don't know if that's exactly what you said, but I just want to understand that properly.
So before I went to med school, like that was kind of like my thought process, because that's what I heard from other people who had like not necessarily had experience with it, but maybe knew people, or this is what they thought of it, because I had no experience with it. But once I went to med school, like there, I feel like it completely changed my mind. Like some of my classmates are like some of the smartest people that I have ever met. Like they work so hard. Some of them ended up at pretty impressive places. And I feel like the work ethic when you go, like of my classmates, is just like crazy. Like some of my classmates from my graduating class, um, one of them like ended up at Yale for like anesthesia. One ended up at NYU, and then one of my friends who actually wants to be a trauma surgeon, she ended up at like somewhere like at a hospital system that like none of our graduates have ever been to. And it was somewhere hard to get into. So that was pretty impressive. And then for myself, I got into Duke. And then one of my classmates also got into Duke as well within the same program as me. So I think like once you get into the actual clinical field, like it doesn't make a difference. And I actually worked like one of my shifts last week with one of my attendings. He asked me where I went to medical school, and I was like, oh, I went to St. George's. And he was like, I've had some really great residents who went to St. George's. So he was like, I have some high expectations of you. And even when I was like a medical student in Jersey, there was like a doctor who, there was like a US medical school that was associated with a hospital. And I worked with him, and I was like, hey, like I'm from St. George's. I'm going to be working with you today. And he was like, I really love like the SGU students. He was like, I actually prefer you guys over the US Med students because you guys are just take more initiative whenever you guys come and hang out with me or like come shadow me. So definitely, I've never had any negative experience as a medical student or now even as a resident.
My general follow-up to that, in the application process, would you say you had to stack the deck for your application to get in, or did you just do anything out of the ordinary for your application to St. George's?
So not really. I think it was the same that I did when I applied to like med school in the US. So I had like significant like volunteering experience, clinical experience. Obviously you still need to take the MCAT for it. And then I think that was it. So you needed to get like letters of recommendation. So it wasn't necessarily anything different. I would say obviously try your best to, do the best and make yourself the best applicant so that you can get a higher chance of getting into St. George's.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. I see somebody named April.
Hi. You mean me or someone?
Yes.
Oh,
Oh, sorry. It was Abril, but in my head, I think I said April.
Yeah, it's okay. I was just confused. I was like, oh, maybe there's another one. Sorry. I wanted to comment that I enjoy hearing your story and everything. And I was wondering if, as a high school senior and going to undergraduate, like college,
Yeah.
do you recommend starting in that process, like research,
Yeah.
internships,
Yeah.
experience
Yeah,
for
so I would say like if your plan is to go to like medical school or PA school, I think something that can definitely add to your resume and like whether regardless of whether what you're trying to go to, definitely get like volunteering experience. And this can be like in healthcare settings or not healthcare settings. So for me, I had like experience in not healthcare settings. So what that means is like there was educational fairs or conferences that I would attend that I would be a volunteer at. And I'm from Georgia, so there's this organization called Hope. So basically, it's this organization that tries to promote Latino students going into higher education. And they have a conference every year. So for like 3 years, I volunteered at that conference. It was like a 1 day conference, but it was like for several hours. And the fact that I did it every year, I feel like it shows my commitment to the fact that I support this cause. So you can do things like that. It can be like anything that you find like you're passionate about, I would definitely recommend doing. Don't do something just because you're like, oh, I think it'll look good on my resume, because I think for me, I used to have that mentality of like, I need to do all these things so that I can like make it look good. But it makes a big difference when you're actually passionate about the thing that you're volunteering at, because whenever you talk about it, you're able to express that. And people can tell the difference when you're excited about a topic versus like, oh, I just did this, you know? So definitely like, I feel like volunteering always is like good, regardless of whatever it is that you do. I actually did no research at all. I have no research experience. I don't really like research like that. For me, like community activism is like where my passion kind of lays. And so like that's why I pursue those things versus like doing research. But obviously research definitely helps you get into like med school.
Thank you.
Mhm. Let me see. Vanishka?
Hi, so I had two questions. So, I know you mentioned that you had like rotations in like pediatrics and like you were an OBGYN. So, did you get a chance to like choose like what specialties you got into, or was it like assigned, or like what was that process like?
So for third year, like every med school, you have to have core rotations because during third year you still have exams. So the core rotation, some schools vary a little bit in terms of they have like different ones. For example, for me, the ones I had, it was pediatrics, OBGYN, psychiatry, general surgery, internal medicine. And then I had emergency medicine because for me, like my interest was in emergency medicine and I needed to get a letter of recommendation when I was applying to med school or to residency. So I specifically asked to be placed at that location. But some people have like family medicine instead, or other students have had like neurology. So it just depends, but usually those are like the core that you pick, that you get basically assigned during third year, because there's still exams for that. But then in fourth year, you get to pick whatever specialty you want to rotate at, which is pretty nice.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And then also, did you like do any like activities geared towards like pre-med and like high school when you were in high school or anything?
So during high school, I actually didn't know that I wanted to go to like med school in high school, really. I really liked art. So I did like art club, and then I ran cross country and when I was in high school. So I didn't really do a lot of like health related activities. But I think as long as you have some kind of like, if you're in high school, if you have any kind of like leadership positions, I feel like those are always good for anything, right? Because it shows that you're able to be in a position where you have certain things that you're assigned and you can get them done. Which obviously, like a job, that's kind of what it is. And there's different even leadership positions when you're in like being a physician. There's different leadership positions you can take. So I think if you are interested in like doing those, definitely do them when you're like in high school.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you so much.
No, no problem. For Rita?
Hi, can I ask you a small question, please?
Sure.
How can I raise my priorities in age of teenager?
You said how can I prioritize? Say it one more time.
Organizing
Organize.
my priorities as you are as the role model success as a successful role model. Sorry.
So
So
how
I
can you
hope to be as you.
wait, say you hope to be what? Say it one more time, sorry.
I hope to be as you. You are a successful role model.
How do I organize my priorities?
Yeah.
So now I'm better at organizing my priorities than I was when I was younger. When I was younger, I feel like I didn't really know how to do it that well because I feel like it's a skill that you kind of develop over time. But for me, like my priorities now is for me, like my health is number one right now. Because obviously I went into a career that's like pretty high stress. And so my health is pretty important, so I eat really healthy. I don't drink caffeine. I exercise. I try to like hang out with people because I love like since I'm an introvert, I like love my me time. But I also realize that I also have to hang out with humans too, so that I don't like get stuck with just hanging out by myself. So I think those are some of the ways that I kind of prioritize. And then like work comes after that because I have to be okay before like work can be okay. If that makes sense.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Is it the Polly?
Yes. Hi. How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. So I thought it was really impressive how you had a job at Dunkin' while while you were a student, and I also work at Dunkin'
Nice, go Duncan.
because I'm trying to save for college, and I'm a high school student. So I was wondering, did like how did that like would you do it again or would you recommend that and how important was that like to work for you?
Oh man, I feel like Duncan was like it would build character, okay? It built character for like working in patient care because you can kind of see like if you ever work in the fast food industry, you like realize what America is really like sometimes. Like people are not the nicest, like they get upset because you're not doing it fast enough, like their order is wrong. And it's kind of the same when you go into healthcare. It's like it's customer service. So if you work in a setting that's like fast food or anything where you have to like serve customers, I feel like it basically prepares you to have a career in any kind of field where you're gonna have to deal with people because you have to learn the skill sets in order to like de-escalate certain things when people get upset at you for like certain things that are out of your control. So I feel like I have no regrets working at Dunkin'. It taught me certain skills that I know now.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Is it Kirolos?
Yes. Is my voice clear?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I was wondering about the MCAT. How do you prepare for it? And is it essential for attending med school or applying for scholarships in the USA colleges or the Caribbean colleges, for example?
So for the MCAT, so when I was taking the MCAT, I feel like I didn't have a really good plan as far as taking it. But now, like after going through med school and having taken like 2 medical board exams, I feel like I'm pretty good at like test taking skills and like studying. So what I wish I would have done differently is obviously know the cost of how much it is going to cost, right? So like know that it's going to cost money to apply for this. It's also going to cost money to either purchase like exams, like practice exams for this and practice questions. So that would be like number one, is like know the financial part of like what it's going to take. I think there's like, I don't know if there's any free resources where you can get like these practice questions or exams, because like for like for like license exams for when you're already in med school, people like make drives with all this stuff that's free. So I'm sure that probably exists for the MCAT too. So know that. I would also, like before I would start studying, I know you guys have to take like the required classes before applying to med school. So I think it's like biochemistry, biology, organic chemistry, and physics, I think. So make sure that you have taken those courses so that you have some baseline knowledge. And then when you're actually, as far as like taking the actual exam, is take a baseline exam, like a day one, just to see where you are. That way, you know, like it's the reality will hit you like, oh, like I need to study a lot. And then you can kind of see where your weaknesses are. So take a baseline exam to know where you are. That way, like you can kind of keep track of like how you improve. Definitely set a time where you're like studying and you're not distracted. Do practice questions, as many practice questions, because one mistake that I feel like I made was I did more content review, like in the books that I had purchased, versus doing more practice questions, which is something that I changed whenever I went to med school and I took my licensing exams, was that I did way more practice questions, because you have to know how a certain material is going to be tested. So do a lot of practice questions, and then supplement that, whatever you get wrong, supplement that with like content learning, meaning if it's a topic that you're weak at, you're going to know because you're going to get the question wrong. So that way you know where your weaknesses are. Definitely keep a list of like the topics that you get wrong, and those are the ones that you're going to need to review. If you got a question right and you didn't guess, you don't necessarily, I wouldn't review it. But if I did guess and I got it right, then I would go and like content review that too. And content review is different for everyone. So for me, I like to do whiteboarding. So let's say like it's a topic I don't know. I'll go on YouTube, look at a video and see if it's a little explanation. Then I whiteboard out what I remember from that video. Because what you need is to do like active recall, it's called. So basically you're like basically expressing what you know from that topic. So I think it makes a big difference. And then basically kind of set time for your studying, how long you're going to be studying for. If your scores are not where you want them to be, don't take the exam. Just extend the time. Like, don't waste your money. Like, don't waste your time. So I think those would be like some of the biggest things.
Oh,
Okay,
thank you
I
so much.
think that's all the time we have for questions today. But she shared her social media with all of you, and we'll share her social media with you as well. Is it okay if they reach out to you to ask questions, or would you prefer that, you know, they just follow you and watch your journey on social media, whatever you're more
No,
comfortable?
definitely. Like that's why I made my page, is for people to like ask questions. Other people have asked questions, so I try to make the time to answer them. So usually I'm pretty good with that.
Okay, perfect. So we'll share your social media. So if you had your hand up or if you had a question in the chat that she wasn't able to get to today, then feel free to just ask her that question there. But thank you so much again for coming to talk to us today. We really appreciate it, and we hope you have a great rest of your weekend.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. And I just want to say, you know, shout out to you guys for making an effort to come to these things, because this is how you like learn information about, you know, steps for taking what you need to do. Oh, and shout out to you for like setting this up, and the other person on the email. I think it's really great that you guys are doing this.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. So for everyone else that's here right now, I have released our attendance poll. I think mostly everyone has answered it, so you should be all set. But I'll give everyone another second to answer it. And if you have answered the poll, or if you weren't able to see it and you've messaged Rourke on Slack to let him know that you couldn't see it and you don't want to stay for the debate, that's totally okay. We just ask that you please leave the Zoom meeting now, so that way when we're creating our breakout rooms for the debate, we don't include you in there and have imbalanced rooms. So please, again, if you are not planning on participating in the debate, but you've done everything that you need to for attendance, you're more than welcome to head out now. We hope you have a great weekend, and we'll see you back on Monday at the same time for our neuroscience workshop in session 4. Again, make sure you've done the poll. Please make sure you have read through the debate topics if you're here, and we're going to be creating breakout rooms pretty shortly. We want all of you to be running your own breakout rooms, so moving from topic to topic, but we'll have a moderator there just in case the conversation is dying down or you're taking too long on one topic, or if some people are potentially speaking a lot longer than other people. We just want to make sure that everything's fair, but we're going to try our best to remain mostly in the background. You'll be in breakout rooms of no more than 30 people, but ideally between like 20 and 25. And you're more than welcome to start discussing the topics as soon as the breakout rooms are made. Does anybody have any questions before I start to make the breakout rooms? And I'll send the medical debate document in the chat as well, again, so that way you can read up on it if you haven't already. I see some hands up. Ishan, do you have a question?
Yeah, I don't think I saw the second poll though.
Yeah, so we don't have a second poll today. It's just one for our first guest speaker.
Okay, got it. Thanks. So only one poll today?
Yep, only one poll today.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Samhita?
Do we get assigned a question per breakout room, or do we get to choose when we get into breakout rooms?
Good question. So the way that it works is you should try to start off with topic 1 in your breakout rooms, and you're going to stay in that breakout room for the entirety of the debate. So you just start with question 1, then after 15 or 20 minutes, try to move on to question or topic 2, and then just keep moving on from there.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, no worries. I'm going to take one more question, and then I'm going to make the breakout rooms, okay? Amir?
Can you hear me?
Hi.
I wanted to ask, I didn't see the first question, however, I did answer the second question. Is it all right?
So all of the questions have been sent in the chat.
No,
And
I meant the poll.
oh, if you haven't seen the poll, then you just have to message Rourke on Slack to let him know that you couldn't see it.
I answered the first or the second poll though.
There's no second poll today.
There's only one.
Okay, no worries. And then I'm also going to stop